in a way, it's a real suffering that you must endure, and your fellow seminarians and fellow those to be ordained suffer for the Church. The Church itself is going through a time of great trial right now. We have there seems to be an anger or something toward tradition. As Pope Benedict used to say, how can we be against what has our own patrimony? It's what all of our fathers received and had as their Mass forever. I mean, for over 1,000 years in the Church. How can we be against our own patrimony? And there is that sentiment right now in the Church. But I think a lot of the suffering that's happening to you and your communities are emblematic of the suffering that's going on in the Church. And so you're suffering in a way also for the Church. And for that, we thank you. We're very grateful. It's interesting in your case because you yourself are not traditional. You don't say the traditional Mass. You're a charismatic in a great sense of the word. There's a real thing about charismatics in the Church, a great, very strong love for Christ and ready to go out and to act for Christ in the world in a way that many people might think is extreme or silly, but you're willing, charismatics generally, they're willing to be fools for Christ in the world because they love so much. And that we see in the traditional community as well. In the traditional community as well, there's all these young people, families, priests, who love Jesus, and they're doing something very countercultural. They're having these large families, and then they're going to this Latin Mass where they have to learn a new language or whatever. But they're doing it out of a real love, a love for Christ, for His Church. And they're beautiful communities, both of them. And so it's funny because they seem quite different, the charismatics and the traditionalists. But there seems to be that union that's not only here, it's all over the world that I've seen, this kind of coming together of charismatics and traditionalists. Even though it seems liturgically they're very, very different, they're the same in a strength of love for Christ and a willingness to endure whatever sufferings or condemnations from the world or from brothers in the Church that might come. So it's a very interesting dynamic. And we hope and pray for you because we've got similar situations in America with bishops under investigation and so on for being more traditional. And also similarly, I have a bishop in America who's a great and holy bishop. His name is Joseph Strickland. He's in Tyler in Texas. And he too doesn't celebrate the traditional Mass. He's very charismatic. He does something like 2 hours of adoration every day before the Blessed Sacrament. But he is also open to tradition, even though he himself really doesn't say the traditional Mass. But he's open to that tradition. And he, too, was under an investigation by the Vatican. No suspensions or anything yet. So there's this struggle, and it's going on not just in France. It's going on all over the world. So we pray for you. But most of all, we thank you. So much. We thank you for your example, for your bon courage. We say to you, bon courage.
Courage.
Maintain your faith and your openness to Christ and His tradition, because it's not this too will pass. And you are setting an example, a beautiful example for all the world. Please, please stay strong.
Yeah, we have to be in the hope, and all these difficulties need to love more and more Christ and the Church.